I was going to ask you
Yeah.
who your pound for pound top three are right now. I think that's a bit boring because everyone speaks Canelo, Crawford, etc. But one argument that's always been a massive argument is who are your top three kind of pound for pound best fighters of all time? Because you've been around a very long time. I haven't been around that long. But who are your best fighters of all time, your top three?
Yeah, I like to sort of work in the last 50, 60 years, mostly because there's half a chance you've seen them or more than that, Fred. And this is, I hope you find this, I hope you find this helpful as you go forward. It's really nice to, if you haven't seen them, to talk to people that have seen them and people you trust. So, you know, you're not going to see George Foreman fight, but I did. But I didn't see George at his peak. So I talked to someone else who did. So I kind of like to connect it that way. Whereas someone from the 30s, really, there's no one around that I'm ever going to talk to, or the 40s. Even the 50s, really, is getting, I don't know anyone that could tell me about fights in the 50s. And there's one or two that maybe saw stuff in the 60s. But so for the last 50 years, 50 odd years, I would say that I've got a good handle on it. So, you know, John Conte, I saw, and I know now he's a friend, that sort of stuff. So you've got an idea. So fighters from the last 50 years is what I would do. And if I just did Brits in no particular order, it would probably be more than three. It would be Nassim in there somewhere, Lennox in there somewhere, Joe Calzaghe in there somewhere, maybe Ricky in there somewhere, because if you don't just base it strictly on skill and talent, if it's like an old game of trumps where you're finding other abilities and other assets. Yeah, so it'd be a mix of those three. And as for world-wise, Tyson for what he did, obviously the great heavyweights from the 70s. I'd throw Duran in. I'd struggle not to get Sugar Ray Leonard in. It's a difficult one to do 1, 2, 3. And people have corrected me sometimes. Said, Buncey, you didn't have him at 1 last time. I said, I know, but I've watched something 2 nights ago and I've now switched him. I've now stuck Roberto Duran at number 1 and I've got Leonard at number 2, that type of stuff. You know, because, you know, it's fairly established that you've got to have Ali as number 1. Okay, so once you've got Ali as number 1, or really he sort of goes into a subculture, he goes into some sort of subgroup, then the other 3 underneath him. I mean, you know, what about Frazier for what he did in 71 in the first fight? How do you pick another heavyweight? If you've got Ali already, how do you pick another heavyweight in the last 50 years and overlook what Frazier did in that one particular fight? It's anyone that just says just straight away, Fred, Hagler, Hearns, Leonard. Fuck, how, really? Just like that, you can do it? Ali, Foreman, Cooper. I mean, fuck off. You can't. I'm nervous about that. You know, you ask me about great Olympians, then maybe it's a bit easier to list. But for pros, boy, oh boy. And also, you know, ones you saw in the flesh and ones you didn't. And, you know, and someone, if I could time travel now and go back to the 30s, I might watch Benny Leonard and say that's the greatest fight I've ever seen. Then I might not, you know. So I haven't really given you an answer. I've just given you 20 names, but that's the way it works.